Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome to this very special podcast episode of The Thrive Show. I am so excited. You all know that I don't bring guests on the show often, if ever. And our very first guest, I am so honored to have him here. He is someone that I connected with years ago when I first started my business, and Platform University was a key metric, a key influencer, Michael Hyatt and Platform University. And he was the dean of coaching inside of this online university. And his name is John Meese. Listen, not only was he the dean of coaching inside of that university and helped so many entrepreneurs start successful businesses and grow successful businesses, but he's also the owner of three businesses today, the main one being Co-Work Inc. He's going to tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. And he has just written a new book that I want you all to get. I believe in him. I believe in his message. I believe in what he's doing. And listen, every time I need some technical advice about my business, or even when it comes to my website, I always make sure that I check in with John and his colleagues first, because he's just built that level of trust with me. So I know that you all are going to benefit greatly from what he has to share. And the name of his book is called Survive and Thrive: How to Build a Profitable Business, not just a business, but a profitable one. There's a difference in any economy, including this one. So let's welcome John Meese.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Giovanna. I'm glad to be here, and thank you so much for the chance to share this important message.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about how you got started in business and what really catapulted you to write the book now.
Yeah, how I got started in business was sort of by accident. I think my dad was actually an entrepreneur my whole life, and I never really thought of him that way. He was a painting contractor. He painted people's houses,
Yeah.
but the reality was he supported our family's lifestyle with that business for 40 years. And unfortunately he passed away last year, but not before I got a chance to tell him that I dedicated this book to him, really,
Wow.
as far as inspiring me of what entrepreneurship can make possible for a family.
Hmm.
And so I actually studied economics in college. So I'm like a traditionally trained economist. I worked for an economics research lab, did all the really nerdy stuff to earn these glasses that I wear. Um, and along the way, I really got disenfranchised with how a lot of academic economics kind of is disconnected from boots on the ground. And I
Mhm.
fell in love with entrepreneurship, with everyday small business owners starting something that makes the world a better place.
Mhm.
So that's how I got into entrepreneurship. And then, of course, as you mentioned, I ran Platform University for a few years
Yeah.
before we sold that business. I worked with Michael Hyatt to do that. And during that time, I got to coach, literally thousands of members, paying members
Mhm.
of the membership site on how to build a business from
Yes.
scratch and how to scale that. So
Yeah.
all of that combined with my own experience, I started a software company called Notable, which of course you're a customer
Yes,
there.
sir. Yes.
And then we have Co-work Inc. is my kind of core company now, which we have a co-working space. We'll probably have more in the near future, but also a podcast called Thrive School. Not too different. Yeah.
Nice.
Um, yeah. So obviously we both love that word, thrive.
Mhm.
And then that's also where kind of led me up to this book. There's a third company. It's sort of just like the shell company that encompasses my consulting and that kind of stuff. It's called
Mhm.
Meeseworks, but no, unless you get an invoice from me, you will never know I own a company called Meeseworks.
Nice
Um,
works.
yes. But yeah, that's a little bit about what got me here. But I'm sorry, you asked about why I wrote the book, right?
Yes, and why now?
Right. Well, um, last year, the year 2020, was a very challenging year for a lot of people
Mhm.
for many reasons.
Right.
And in the middle of peak lockdown, back in April of last year, where literally in the state of Tennessee, my new co-working space was closed by executive order. It
Mhm.
was a ghost town walking around downtown Columbia where I live. Um, I recorded a video of it. It was just so eerie having all these businesses closed. Some of
Mhm.
those businesses never reopened. And that happened all across the world. And I was just really just heartbroken by that. So I recognized that there were three crises going on at the same time. There was a health crisis, right? COVID-19, global pandemic, real health crisis, a
Mhm.
mental health crisis, because so many people had been consumed by fear and panic that they'd really lost their ability to cope.
Mhm.
And both of those are real crises that I'm completely unqualified to help with.
Mm.
But there was a third crisis at the same time, which is an economic crisis.
Right.
Now the tally looks like over 200,000 businesses permanently closed in the US alone last
Mm.
year, more
Mm.
than usual. 200,000 more than usual. Because some businesses close every year. It's just part of the way it goes.
Right.
But that's heartbreaking. I mean, these are people's sleepless nights, life savings, blood, sweat, and tears, and family sacrifice. And so I wanted to do something about it. So I started the Thrive School podcast actually during that lockdown by going around and interviewing a few dozen of my mentors. So I know your mentors as well. I was interviewing people like Michael Hyatt, Ray Edwards, Pat Flynn, Mike Michalowicz, just figuring out like what's going on, like what's working in business and what's not working.
Right.
That combined with my academic background and then my own businesses was able to pull out some principles that apply not just in this past crisis, but every crisis. And what's the difference? Some businesses do well and succeed even when there's an economic crisis. Right. Some don't. What's the difference? And how can you make sure yours is the one that survives and thrives? And that's why I wrote this book.
Wow. So well said. It makes me think about an article that I just read. I think it was a Wall Street Journal, but they were talking about how there is a mass exodus right now of employees. And I can't drive down the street without seeing at least 5 "we're hiring" signs, and people are, discovering I don't have to be at this particular workplace. I can start something that I love to do. Talk a little bit about what you feel the impact the pandemic has had on people deciding to leave places of employment and start something of their own.
Well, I can talk about what I feel, which is that, it definitely caused people to reevaluate their priorities. But beyond that, we just broke record after record in terms of new business startup filings in the US for the first half of 2021. We've broken all kinds of records. And so honestly, that's exciting, but it's also crucial because we were at a point where we were at a decade low in entrepreneurship in the world. We were actually, in terms of like number of new businesses started each year, it's weird because we're actually at this point where culturally entrepreneurs are like idols. There's like, everyone wants to know what Elon Musk is doing, or what Richard Branson or Jeff Bezos, the entrepreneurs and the big startup companies, the Uber and the Netflix, that's what everyone talks about in the media. And so it's easy to think entrepreneurship is actually at a peak. But if you look at the data, small business ownership and everyday entrepreneurship, which is 99% of business, has been at an all-time low leading up till 2020. So that of course became worse during 2020, but now in 2021, what I'm calling the year of, for me personally, I'm calling this the year of harvest. For many people, this is the year to really just redefine their future. Because last year, everyone had to look in the mirror and say, what's important? And that may mean changing careers. That may mean starting a business. And this book is designed to be, I love this. One of the early readers of the book reviewed it and called it a weekend MBA. And I love that. Yeah, that's sort of the idea here is like, you don't need thousands of dollars in investments. You don't need to know the right person. You don't need a degree. It doesn't matter whatever your background is. If you apply these principles, you can start a thriving business that fuels your life.
Yes. I've been reading your book, and when you talked about redefining the future, there's a chapter in the book where you talk about 1,000 true fans. I love that whole element about 1,000 true fans. Now, some of our listeners may not know what that means or what it entails. Give somebody out there encouragement and hope if they're just at the ground level of building their business, how 1,000 true fans can really help change the trajectory of their success.
I would love to. And I do have to give credit where credit's due. That concept comes originally from Kevin Kelly, who's the founder of Wired magazine. And he has this really just legendary essay online now that's been quoted in everything called 1,000 True Fans, where he made the point early on with the internet that the game had changed. It used to be there were these gatekeepers that controlled the world. And it didn't matter if you're a musician, you had to go through one of the big labels or record companies to try to, get your music out there. And if they said no, you were out of luck. If you wanted to publish a book, you had to go through one of a core dozen publishing companies. And if they said no, you were out of luck. Before that, you would have to get change approved by a king or a pope or something like that. And if they didn't approve it, it wasn't going to happen. But now we live in this world where as humans, we're interconnected. And so there are places where the gatekeepers can actually be helpful to connect us. Like I still have a publisher for my book, but we don't need them. And so that means the dynamics change, where all of a sudden you can create something and directly connect to your fans, which means that there's this rising class of creators, of people who are creating content, creating products, and interacting directly. I mean, we take it for granted because we do it all the time. We're doing it with this podcast, but
Right.
it's mind blowing when you look at global history that we're able to connect directly to people all over the planet
Yes.
with and communicate with them. And so because of that, the principle that Kevin Kelly outlines in 1000 True Fans, which I do quote heavily in the book, in that chapter that you're referring to, is this idea that if you could just get 1,000 people out of the billions of people in the world if you could tap into something that they're really passionate about and create something that they want, that's all it really takes to support your business. If they're going to buy, I mean, let's just say $100 a year worth of products from you, that's $100,000. And so, of course, that's kind of not taking into account all the accounting complications of cost of goods and your salary and all that kind of stuff. But it's an oversimplification by design. But just to say, can you get 1,000 true fans? Because that sounds much more doable than saying, can you become a mega viral unicorn and raise $1 billion? You know?
Oh, I love that. And it's so funny because oftentimes it makes me think of that example of when you go to a mall and they offer you, have you ever gone to the food court and they've got a little piece of chicken on a stick, on a
Of
toothpick?
course.
And so
Yes.
they're offering you that sample and you say, oh my goodness, that was so good. Now I want the whole meal. So you go back and buy. And you talk about how samples leads to sales. And so there are leads and then there are sales. So talk a little bit about how as we build that 100, I almost said 100,000 true fans.
But sure, you can do that too. There's
Yes,
nothing wrong with that.
exactly.
Yeah.
As you build that fan base, talk a little bit about how, as entrepreneurs, we need to offer samples to our target audience before just asking them to press the buy now button.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's shifted in business is just that, I mean, with the age of information, consumers have a lot of information. And so it used to be kind of like, if you showed up in a village and you were like, hey, I'm selling the best axe in the world, everyone was like, well, I guess it must be the best axe in the world, right? I mean, there's no customer reviews, there's no way to, Google it and check it out, that kind of stuff. And so what's happened is that consumers are incredibly intelligent and informed. And so because of that, I think you owe it to your customers to just give them that courtesy of acknowledging the fact that they're incredibly smart. And it's not enough for you just to say, I have a product that's going to change your life, you should buy it. They're looking at you and saying, okay, politely prove it. And so, yeah, sometimes not politely, but generally politely, they're saying, okay, can you give me a reason to trust you? And much like in a dating relationship, you don't walk up to someone on the street who you find attractive and say, marry me. I mean, if you do that, yeah, again, maybe 1 in 1,000 is going to say yes. I'm not sure how well that marriage is going to go. Maybe great. I don't know. But the point is that your failure rate is going to be astronomical. But instead, if you were to go up to a potential customer, like a prospect, right? Someone on the quote street, which could be Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, but someone who you don't have a relationship with, you can go where they are and connect with them and say, hey, I think that this is something that you care about. This seems to be like a problem in your life that I can help solve. Can I give you something for free? And that's where the free sample idea comes in, is that the free sample, the sample solution, which honestly in digital marketing, often we call this a lead magnet or an email magnet, but it's a free sample. We need to remember that's what it is. It's a sample of the complete solution. The goal here then is to show someone that they can trust you. And then when they come back and they say, that was great, that was really valuable, actually, can I have more? Then you say yes. And then you don't go from there to, yes, sign up for my $2,000 coaching program.
You're right.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's tone deaf. Instead, you go and you go to what I call your gateway product, which is this painless purchase, right? The idea is that, can you give them the next level up of their transformation? That might mean, depending upon your target customer, then that might mean that your product is $5 or $50 or $100. Really depends on the market. But the idea is it needs to be a painless purchase that, again, the goal here is to earn their trust a little bit more.
Yes.
So if someone buys a $5 product from you and you give them $5 worth of value, well, now you're at a net zero. Right? Essentially, you don't owe each other anything. But if someone gives you $5 to buy a product and you give them a product that blows their mind and gives them a huge amount of value, 50, or they're thinking, oh my gosh, they could have charged 50 or 500 or $1,000 for this product. now all of a sudden they feel like they owe you and they can trust you. And that's how relationships are built.
Oh, wow. I have so many stories around that of products that I've created and sold. And, people would say, wow, I can't believe this was only this price point. I would have paid this amount for it. Or, someone who said, wow, I just got the entire value of the mastermind in this PDF
Wow.
document or in that one 10-minute conversation, whatever it may be. So it's important as entrepreneurs that we don't underestimate ourselves either. There's a story in the book that I love. You talk about a woman who goes into a boutique to buy
Yes.
a pair of shoes. And so we've got a lot of ladies listening to the podcast. So, our ears perk up when you talk about shoes and boutiques.
Yes.
So you talked about this story about this woman who goes into a boutique to get a pair of shoes, but she walks out with more. Talk to us a little bit about that and how leads and prospects, kind of what you mentioned earlier.
Well, first of all, I should say I knew when I wrote this in the book that it was very dangerous for me to cite a women's boutique as a small business example, because people are going to ask me questions about it, and I'm going to have to show my ineptitude when it comes to women's clothing. But all jokes aside, yeah. So I wanted to try to make this as physical as possible, right? Something that we can see, kind of imagine. And it happens to be as I'm standing here in my office and I look out my left window, there's a women's boutique. So it's a great example for me to reference.
Nice. Awesome.
But the idea is, kind of the question is, how can you apply this framework to something as common as a clothing boutique? Mm-hmm. And the idea is like, well, what if for example, and I referenced that story a couple different times in the book. So forgive me if I don't refer to the specific reference that you're asking about.
Sure, no problem.
But if I were to kind of combine those, and the idea would be that, what if this was not just any woman, but someone who is really looking to really be a confident professional with a professional wardrobe? Is that's really what they're kind of worried about. They're thinking, man, I want something that's not incredibly uncomfortable, but something that still makes me look professional, but also beautiful and confident when I'm wearing it. Something where I feel confident and beautiful.
Right.
And so knowing that, if they were to maybe walk into a boutique and see there's hundreds of products, right? At every boutique you walk in, there's like hundreds of products. It's overwhelming, especially for men like me, but still. But if you were to walk in and right in front, imagine if there was just one gateway product position right there. And the example I gave was like, what if you had one classic pair of shoes that could work well with a professional wardrobe but still be comfortable? And that was the gateway product position to the front of the store. Well, all of a sudden you see that and you think, okay, well, that's an easy buy. I mean, that's something, that's like a comfortable pair of shoes that looks good with almost any wardrobe. Great. Of course, I know many women will say, but John, I want to have dozens and dozens of shoes. That's also okay. I'm not opposing that practice. But for the boutique, it immediately gives them a way to become the hero, or well, rather to help the hero succeed. Because I don't want to infringe on story brand, but that's a whole other topic.
Sure.
But with that in mind, I mean, imagine if, as a woman, you walked in and you felt so taken care of because they foresaw this was a need. And imagine if immediately after that, you start, someone who works there, a stylist approaches you and says, hello, welcome to our store. Is this your first time here? Can I show you around a little bit? Said, by the way, one of the services we offer is what I would call your flagship product. It's called the Working Woman's Wardrobe, where this is a several $1,000 program. I mean, let's just call it a $2,000 package, where we'll actually have a stylist work with you to select a wardrobe that fits you, that you feel confident in, and that you can wear every day.
Right.
And then, by the way, we also offer a continuity product or subscription product, where for $1,000 once a quarter, you can meet with a stylist to reset your wardrobe for the seasons.
Right.
And so imagine if you could come in and they go, okay, let's swap that sweater out for this kind of lighter jacket. And so now this is all very relevant to me because, this is a need my wife has. I see this where she's trying to figure out how to be a mom of young children, and also have a professional wardrobe that she feels confident in. So that's why I'm aware of this need. But the idea is that whatever business you apply this to, if you can have a gateway product, a flagship product, and a continuity product, even if a customer doesn't start by buying your flagship product, because most won't, right? It gives them an idea. You're sort of like casting a vision for what transformation looks like, what the full experience with your brand looks like. Right now, if you walk into most boutiques, the full experience is basically just buy one of everything, I guess. Like it's not clear. Like what
Right.
is full transformation with their company?
Exactly.
So did I touch on the point you wanted to highlight there, Giovanna?
You did. And something that you said earlier when you talked about the gateway product and
Mm-hmm.
that flagship product as well, I think it's such an important point to make because while we have a lot of coaches that listen to this
Mm,
podcast, one of the things that I always see is one-on-one coaching just does not scale. And so
mm,
it's so important to have a continuity program or product, like you said. So yeah, that does touch on that point because unless you want to cap your growth at a certain level with just one on one
right.
coaching, talk a little bit about, as we get ready to wrap it up, talk a little bit about how the need for creating other products other than just a one on one type of program is critical if entrepreneurs are going to thrive, at least in the coaching space.
Sure. Well, I've been a coach myself. At one point, that was essentially my primary income. So
Right.
that's a real need. I mean, it's just there's only so many hours in the day. There's no way around that. Um, but if I could flip it a little bit, it also comes back to your customer and the fact that once you get clear on what problem you solve, the reality is people require different types of solutions at different times.
Mm-hmm.
If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If all
Yeah.
you are is a coach, then everything looks like you need a coaching session. But the
Wow.
reality is some people are either not at that point yet where they're comfortable enough to have an open conversation with a coach or where they can financially afford one-on-one time, or maybe they just don't have the ability to meet you in person or on a video call. I mean, there's so many barriers to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you create other types of products, you actually give them a chance to say yes to transformation. So yes, you do scale beyond your own time, but you
Right.
also serve your audience better by giving them different ways to experience that transformation.
Wow.
But if you're just a single coach without having to build a huge practice and you have a gateway product, which is maybe again, like a $5 to $50 product that could be like a little video course, a mini
Mm-hmm.
video course, like 3 to 5 videos. It
Mm-hmm.
could be an ebook or a checklist or a guide or a workbook. If you do that, and then on the flip side, you have a flagship product that's either an immersive coaching program, maybe it's a group coaching program that meets for 12 weeks at a time or something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all of a sudden, you're not talking about just doubling your income potential in your business. You're actually talking about 10xing the income potential in your business just by making sure you have those three products: a gateway
Wow.
product, a continuity product, and a flagship product.
So good. So good. So listen, John, with those, listen, you all that are listening, remember, okay, we've talked about a lot of things today, but here's something I really want you to remember. What John said: have that gateway product, that
Mm-hmm.
continuity product, and that flagship product. John, now that you've mentioned that, what is the promise of transformation that your book provides? Meaning, what if when
Yeah.
people pick up this book and they read it and execute what they read, how are their lives going to change?
Well, it's right there in the subtitle of the book, right? Build a profitable business in any economy, including
Mhm.
this one.
Mm.
And that's the goal here is really now survive and thrive. The reason why that's there is the main title is because I really want to emphasize thriving as being more than just profit, money. I mean, money is important, but it's just one aspect of profit. The reality is if you take profit, all that means is that you got more than you put in, but that's true. And right now, I'm in a co-working space that I own. I'm
Mhm.
profiting from this co-working space in many ways. One of them is the fact that on my way back here to the office, I walked past a couple of members of our co-working space having a lively conversation who would have never met had we not had this space.
Wow.
Another one is that an entrepreneur walked in off the street searching for a community, saying that he's just always been kind of on his own. And he was so excited to find out that there's an entrepreneur focused co-working space in our community.
Wow.
That's examples of profit, right? It's not,
Yes.
the financial profit's important, but it's more than that.
Yes.
So that's what this business is designed to help you do, is to build a business that fuels your life
Mhm.
rather than the other way around. And if I could just make
Mhm.
one more point on that topic, it's that
Absolutely.
some people have chosen to make the term lifestyle business almost an insult. They'll use it to
Mhm.
refer to kind of like they're like, oh, that's just a lifestyle business. That's just kind of like a little hobby. Maybe you make some money from it.
Hmm.
No, 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 no. They've got it all wrong. If your business is not designed to serve your lifestyle, get out of it. Like that's
Wow.
so build a lifestyle business, build a business that matches the lifestyle you want to live and that
Mm.
allows you to serve people and to make the world a better place.
Oh, I love that. And that's one of the core values that we talk about every week here is building a life and a business that you love,
Mm,
that brings you joy, but we add to that while keeping God first, which is your core value.
Amen.
You have to be true to your core values, whatever that means for you. So John, thank you so much for coming on today. I am so excited for readers to get this book. Listen, tell everybody where they can find the book,
Okay.
and your website, all of that. How do we connect?
So, first of all, thank you. Second of all, go to surviveandthrivebook.com.
Okay.
There, you'll see where you can actually order a copy of the book. Now, you can order it at any bookstore, but if you go there, then you're also going to get some bonuses that go with the book, including a fill in the blank playbook, as well as the audiobook and ebook version as well. So, check it out, please. And there, you'll also see other ways to connect with me if you want to reach out or connect on. I'm the only social media platform I'm personally on is LinkedIn.
I love
But you
that.
can find me
Yes.
on there. You can go to
Yes.
Meese.link. It'll take you straight to my profile. Um,
Awesome.
yeah. And I look forward to connecting.
Fantastic. John, is there anything that you would like to leave the readers with before we part? Any parting words?
Sure. One thing I'll expound upon that I say often, but I don't usually explain myself, is
Mhm.
I always end an interview like this by saying, keep up the good work.
Mm,
But because I know your heart, Joanna, I'll share that when I say the good work, I emphasize the word good
mm,
because that means good for the world. It means good for you. And it also means good in the sense that God's work is good. It's the only work there.
wow.
It's the only good work there is. And so
Yes.
that's how I sign off every email. That's how I end every interview is say, keep up the good work. But I don't just mean keep up what you're doing. I mean, do more of the good work and less of everything else. Let
Mm.
go of the distractions and just keep up the good work.
Wow, I love that. Well, you all, there you have it. I know you took away so much. I just was like a sponge this entire episode and soaked
Oh,
up so much. So make sure, everyone, that you go to surviveandthrivebook.com, order your copy. The book is also available on Audible for you audio
hmm.
listeners. You can check it out there as well. Until next time, we will see you next week. And remember, where God guides, God provides, and where God directs, God protects. We'll see you next time.